Picture it. A planet covered in barren deserts with giant worms burrowing in the sand. The planet orbits a supergiant star, Canopus, as far away as Pluto from our sun. Yet somehow, humans survive on the surface. Yes, to fans of the Dune series of books and now movies, this might sound familiar and impossible, but there is some science behind the fiction. For instance, Canopus is a real star over 300 light years from Earth. And now researchers have built a computer simulation of Arrakis to see if we could actually live there. And here to tell us about it is climate specialist and science specialist Darius Mahdavi. How do you even begin to simulate a fictional planet, first of all?
I think the first step is to thank Frank Herbert, the author of Dune. I mean, the book's world building was so good that climate modelers could literally build the world, with a few reasonable assumptions, of course. Now, take a look. Here you can see the deserts and massive sand dunes, hundreds of meters tall, as well as the barren mountains that make up the shield wall around the North Pole. All of that is fed into the model, as well as the fact that its star, Canopus, is a supergiant about 70 times wider and 2,000 degrees hotter than our sun. But even still, Arrakis is so far from Canopus, as far as Pluto is from the sun, and it has less carbon dioxide than the Earth, a critical greenhouse gas. So I asked one of the modelers behind the work, how could the planet be so hot?
Ozone is a much more potent greenhouse warming gas. It's about 60 times more effective at trapping in heat than carbon dioxide. So it's much more devastating in terms of its effect on the temperatures on the surface.
Those temperatures, easily a scorching 75 to 80 degrees Celsius at the poles in the summer. And that's all thanks to a crazy high concentration of ozone, making up 0.5% of Arrakis' atmosphere, which doesn't sound like a lot until you compare it to Earth's 0.0000001%.
Wow, who wants to go to an all-inclusive? So before we get carried away, how realistic is this? Is it similar to the climate models we use for this planet?
Right, well, Canopus is real, but Arrakis is not. But it is the same idea, yes. Like I said, this is building on the existing models of Earth's climate. Now, because the physics at play on a water world like ours are very different from a desert planet like Arrakis, they really had to get into the guts of those models and change some of the fundamentals. But the models of Earth are just as exciting.
We can now use the models to play around with different parts of it. Play God, play what if we change this mountain height? What if we put this continent further away than where we thought it was? What if we put a big ice sheet on Antarctica or we remove it? What does that do? All of these things allow us to better understand exactly how the Earth system behaves.
Looking at now is one of those climate models of Earth. On climatearchive.org, and I spent longer than I care to admit playing around with it, you can actually select the era in Earth's history you want, going back hundreds of millions of years, and it will show you how the continents looked at that time, and how that changes, and the changes in the atmosphere, wildly affect everything from temperatures to the jet stream to the vegetation, which helps us understand Earth's past, and in doing so, better understand our present and our future.
So, Darius, big question. What is the verdict? Can humans actually survive on Arrakis?
It depends how comfortable you are with being uncomfortable. It's definitely not going to be an all-inclusive, Dan. But let's start with the big ones. Despite being depicted as a blazing hot desert world, and though the poles would get up to 80 degrees Celsius, the planet would actually be freezing half the time, with the poles seeing temperatures plummet to 40 or 50 below in the winter. So where you really want to be is the tropics, even though that might sound weird since here the tropics are the warmest, where the temperature would only fluctuate between around 15 and 40 degrees. Here's how Farnsworth put it.
It was very surprising. There's lots and lots of the areas where quite livable, not very nice environments to live in, maybe, but certainly for humans with technology would be an area that you could habitate.
Beyond that, all you have to worry about is the lack of water, the gale force winds forming incredible sand dunes and burying you, poisoning from all that ozone in the lower atmosphere, and of course the giant murderous sandworms. In other words, it would be livable, but definitely not hospitable.
With no swim-up bar.
No.
Science and climate specialist Darius Mahdavi, who will be back later with the full weather on this planet.